Welcome back to the Peggy Smedley Show, the podcasting voice of IoT and digital transformation.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Peggy Smedley Show. I'm your host, Peggy Smedley, and we are coming to you live from Liveworx, and we are also here on Periscope, which is really fun. My next guest has more than 30 years of experience in automotive, aerospace, chemical, consumers good, high-tech, industrial. He's got it all, medical devices. He is very experienced. His specialty is leading enterprise transformation, operational turnaround, and performance improvement programs enabled by technologies. So please welcome David. How do you say that, David?
Breaugh.
Breaugh, America's lead for manufacturing and resources at Microsoft. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So what's your take on this so far, since this is your first Liveworx we were just discussing?
Yeah, so this is an amazing place. It's hard to see outside of the glass bowl here, but the convention center is beautiful. The show floor is really well equipped, and people are super excited after the keynote this morning.
Yeah, Jim did a great job, right? He's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's really fun. So,
welcome
David,
back
let's
to the Peggy Smedley Show, the podcasting voice of IoT
is fairly
and
new,
digital
right?
transformation.
You said, what, about 6 months?
About 6 months, yeah.
So, going over is really, you've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. So just being at Microsoft, being new doesn't matter much because you know the industry. So let's talk about getting the lay of the land here. Really, what's your take right now? What manufacturers really need to do right now? Because even though many of them still might be taking this technology journey, some are probably on their second phase of it. What do you guys think at Microsoft they really should be thinking about in this digital transformation journey? Because even though they're starting out, others are second phase of it. There's a lot Microsoft can help them.
Absolutely, yeah. So I started working in a factory in Flint, Michigan 3 days out of high school. And,
so you get it.
Yeah, I was kind of doughy-eyed, and it was really interesting to see the way that products got built. The reality is when I walk through plants today, a lot really hasn't changed, right? There's more data and there's more kind of blinking lights, but if you look at the way that the work gets done, it's really heroics, right? It's people really trying to make sure that things get done on time and at the right quality levels. As I think about the role that IoT plays, it's almost two different lenses. It allows you to go very micro, to really close the loop between planning and execution, but it also allows you to aggregate and really look at value streams and the way that work gets done beyond a single cell or even a single factory.
So do you think we are evolving? In some ways, I think we're going forward, but going backward. I mean, as Jim described today, we're going from, this IoT, but yet now we're including back, which is AI and AR and IoT and, CAD and PLM. We're putting it all together to not just say it's IoT. It's this whole digital transformation. When we think about manufacturing, it really says where we thought they were islands of automation, and you get this understanding manufacturing, We're not doing that anymore. We're not siloed anymore. We've got to bring everybody together if we want to go forward. Do you kind of see that happening then?
Absolutely. I mean, there's islands of data, and it's resident and embedded controllers and a lot of other kind of point technologies that have been deployed on the shop floor. I think the mistake that I see a lot of companies trying to do is look at any one of these emerging technologies as a silver bullet. And I kind of call it the product puppet show.
Oh, no.
Standing up proof of concepts to go AI something or to go advanced analytics something is noble, but I think the real opportunity is to kind of step back and really evaluate the business end to end and then figure out how do you use the right combination of capabilities and technologies together to change the way that work gets done.
So manufacturers really have to take some proper steps to do things properly. And is that maybe the first step, is evaluate their operations to know what's the best step? Is that maybe your first advice then to them?
Yeah, the way that we have really changed the go-to-market with our own company, Microsoft, is it's moving well beyond a product type of a focus. It's more
absolutely.
to an outcome focus. So it really starts with what are we trying to accomplish? Technology really isn't a constraint if you look at it over the next couple of years. So it really is, it starts with getting anchored on what's the desired outcome, and then being able to not only look at the way that business is done today, but really putting on that transformation mindset. So you get beyond faster, cheaper, or more efficient around current work practices.
Do you then say that there are some specific guiding principles that you want manufacturers to follow, or they should just follow based on how they have a set group of people? I'm probably asking everyone the same question because I really believe success in any company depends on the people. You can have all the technology and all the processes you want, but unless you have the people to make it work, it doesn't matter. And so that question, I think I'm going to ask every guest I have today, because I think I have to really bring that home. It really all depends first on the people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think there's a big myth out there that a lot of this technology is going to replace jobs. There will be jobs displaced, but there's going to be a lot more created.
I agree with you.
I was in the plants when robots first came onto the scene, and it was amazing to see assembly line workers soon become skilled tradespeople, right, with higher pay and actually a better job. It was
upskilling. Sometimes
absolutely.
You do it right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, the principles that I really think about in terms of our transformation philosophy is think big, right? Think big early so that you have a unifying vision for how you want jobs to be done in the future, right? More than a couple of years out. But you really start small and then you move fast. There is no perfection. And the beautiful thing about these platforms and these emerging technologies is that you can iterate over time. So you can deliver capabilities to maybe drive cost reduction in the short term, but then over time you can start to look at driving process effectiveness and even start moving the needle on revenue and margin.
Help me understand a little bit the biggest benefits. I think when we look at the Internet of Things, what helps me really understand is we look at improving profit margins, cost reduction. I think so many of us talk about improving productivity. I mean, these are the things that we've talked about. Increasing revenue, those are those big numbers that we get so stoked about, right? What in your mind has been the number one thing when we look at the Internet of Things, or we want to say now, again, let's just use Jim's line, digital transformation, what's going forward? I don't know. Last year on stage, I was the one that brought him after we went into the press. I said, Jim, you're saying the Internet of Things is dead. And he was like, well, it's kind of like we're going to move on. And he is. He's moving on and saying it's more than that. It's now digital transformation. Mm-hmm. So when we look at all of these things, what do you want manufacturers to be thinking about now with their biggest benefits in IoT? Because it is more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting when we go in and do visioning sessions with customers. They've been doing that for years, right? They've been optimizing for 3-4 decades in some cases to try and squeeze more efficiency and cost out of the four walls of their factories. So being able to really reverse that from their customers' perspective in trying to understand what are the things that are going to drive loyalty first, hopefully increase wallet share, and then almost cult-like status when you lock them in with some of the services that can be delivered on top of the product. So companies have started their digital transformation in those areas, but too often it results in a new website and it doesn't really connect back to the value stream. So the factories are a good place to start. It usually focuses on cost optimization, or trying to optimize the different elements of OEE, which they've been doing for a long time. I would contend that there are better ways to go after those same goals, but over time, the focus really starts to spread, and it's really keeping that connection to the end customers and even end consumers in some cases that really keeps things on track.
Are you seeing companies right now, manufacturers, seeing a real competitive advantage out there? Because when I look at the marketplace right now, that's what they have to do. If they want to stay in business, whether they're very large, because we've seen what's happened to some of the best companies that don't react positively are no longer. Those behemoths, we said, how could they ever go out of business or go bankrupt, right? To even the smallest companies who are agile and moving, get that competitive advantage.
So there's a convergence of disruptive forces. We see this every day in our consumer electronics business, right? Pretty brutal business. And being able to stay focused on innovation, time to market, cost competitiveness, and customer loyalty, right? It's kind of the four big things that most industries experience. What really I think differentiates a company, it can come in different flavors, but it starts with being able to be easy to do business with. It's kind of a good starting point. A lot of manufacturers kind of balk when they look at the full journey of transformation, and I did when I first went through one myself, but I think it's really ease of doing business. I think it starts to extend in terms of digital services that can be added on top of products, even commodities. And then it starts to get really interesting where you can really provide personalization and almost customization of what your offerings are.
Do companies understand that, just as you said, easy to do business with? Do they really understand what that means in today's environment? Because it's hard. Business isn't easy. I mean, in a competitive world that's tough, do you think they understand what that actually means? Because they're fighting for every dollar. They're fighting competitive forces. They're fighting now tariffs. A lot of things to deal with. Do they understand what that means to do easy to do business with?
I think it's yes and no. The results are mixed. I think most companies are closer to their customers today than they ever have been, right? Like I said before, a lot of the digital investment has been on that customer interface. That said, I think it's really focused on what they sell today. And so too often, we don't really come across companies that look at adjacent markets or new consumers. And so that's part of the engagement model that we help them with, is really thinking about what are your customers going to need 2 years from now? How does that build into their environment? So I think flipping the lens from trying to optimize what comes out of a plant or what runs through a supply chain to how they're going to compete and really be able to drive not just more revenue, but higher margins in the future.
Hasn't that also changed when you're a manufacturer, when before you just made something and it was sold, to now you have to be servicing that, and that has changed the dynamic for, it's now you've had to create a software as a service. So they've had to change, and it's kind of flipped the model for them. So many manufacturers never had a relationship with customers like they have today. So now they have to think differently. So with IoT, hasn't that made them say, I've never had that relationship before, so I don't even know what that means?
Absolutely. There's almost two divergent views that we see in the market. One is around this ecosystem of go-to-market partners. If you look at Microsoft and the way that we partner with PTC and many other strategic companies, we believe that we're better together, and we can...
Great line, better together.
Better
Great
together,
line.
right? But it's really about how do we articulate a joint value proposition that's bigger than what we could deliver on our own. I think the other kind of 180 view of that is companies are almost saying, look, I'm going to connect my products so my products become the voice of the customer. Because today the voice of the customer is usually negative coming through a call center. So how do I get in front of bad things through some of these capabilities and really be able to get in front of problems before customers even know they're going to happen?
Because customers are extremely demanding today. I mean, they want things faster, quicker, in the Amazon way. Amazon has changed a lot of that, as we say, right?
Yeah.
Because we want things, the immediacy, we've just, when I grew up, you didn't get things immediately, right? You didn't get things within an hour. I mean, we've just now, today's younger generation wants things, color, size, shape, in an entirely different way, and that's what we've become accustomed to, correct? Right?
Absolutely.
When things are made.
It's really as much about the experience. Right?
Absolutely. So looking at that now, what are some of the biggest challenges now, with even now looking at trying to find a workforce that can adapt to that? Because not only do you have to have the right partners, and we talked about this now, but the right ways of adapting, but you have to have the right skilled workforce that's able to address the needs of the customer, because now we have shortages. We might have the orders, we might have the demands, but we don't have the labor to help meet those demands. So now we have another challenge that says, great, I might have the business, but I don't have the people that are helping me get that business. So we have an entirely different challenge that we have to meet in a manufacturing society today that just changes things, and we go, wow, this is great, we got the business, but we don't have the people to help service the business.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people pick on the frontline workers. I would say that there's a big leadership challenge first when you look at it.
So it starts top down.
It starts at the top.
So now we're going to pick on management.
Well,
I like it.
and you know, when you go into a lot of manufacturing companies, it's people that have risen up through the ranks, right? And the manufacturing culture is one of optimization and getting things done, right? It's kind of the hero mentality. Transformations are quite different. It really does take a top-down view, and it's really a unique opportunity. Most people in a manufacturing role might get to do that once in their career. So it's not picking on them, it's identifying that it is a different type of a journey from the start. I think being able to pull in the people that actually create the value, so the people that design and manufacture and service the products, is critical, right? It's critical because they're the ones that are going to be doing the same thing in a different way going forward. I think the third thing that we see is really a challenge with internal IT departments that have grown up in an enterprise application world where they could buy a product on a CD and run it to a go live and then walk away. This is a kind of different animal around continuously coming up with ideas, delivering them, and measuring the outcomes. So it's really a full enterprise transformation when you get into it.
Aren't these things, though, that we were taught by Henry Ford when the production of the Model T, then Jack Welch, Toyota, Kanban, you know, Jack Welch had what we had, you know, he was teaching us all about black belts. I mean, these are lessons we didn't have before in things that we were learning in lean and all of these things that are going back in our manufacturing days. Now when we think about producing things, I mean, I also look at when we think about what happened, a lot of these are like reoccurring lessons that we've had that we are going back to having to learn the hard way from top down, and the way we're producing things, you know. I mean, I think some of these things are kind of like, shouldn't we have learned them in the past and we're just going back?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I live in Detroit, so Henry Ford hits close to home. You know, the assembly line and the way that they measured productivity was with a stopwatch.
Wow.
You know, that evolved into different kind of models and features, and ultimately lean kind of manufacturing systems. So I like to joke that what's old is new again. And you know, say that I worked in supply chain when it used to be cool, and it's cool again. What's different is the way that you can really enable the capabilities to change the way that work gets done. It goes beyond automation, right? It's really how do you eliminate non-value added work and be able to focus humans on what they do best around creativity and problem solving and complex communications that no technology will really replace in our lifetime.
Microsoft right now is really taking an aggressive role in manufacturing, and I think if I'm seeing what's happening right now with PTC in its role and being a strong partner, there's got to be other verticals that Microsoft is going to be committed to, and I can see that, you know, manufacturing's always been a big vertical for Microsoft. So is this then, when I hear Jim's role right now in his transformation and things, then I have to see that Microsoft is going to have to be deep penetration in other verticals as well.
Absolutely.
That this has to indicate many more things to come. And I want to be the one to say that I think there's more verticals here that I can see. I can guess right now. I can see that there's going to be some deep penetration right now that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to when Satya became CEO 4 years ago. There was a big tilt of really taking the company that was traditionally organized around products and turning it sideways. So it was organized around verticals. And so, like I said before, we're still in the midst of that transformation. That takes time. And it's culture change, but we're making some big bets in manufacturing. We're making big bets in retail. We're making big bets in the resource industries like oil and gas and utilities around alternative energy. even healthcare, right? Med device, pharma, and even the way that some of the health systems work. Those tend to be industries that create new value. They don't just shift value around. And we think we have differentiation not only in our strategy, but the way that we're going to market versus some of our competitors.
My gut tells me construction and infrastructure is going to be pretty big for you guys. I can just see it based on my little intuition here, based on the talks here from PTC. I see that's coming because it just makes sense to me. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm lobbing that out there. But let's talk a little bit about empowering employees going forward. Do you see that we're going to have to do more of that?
For sure. There's a lot of expert workers that have many decades of knowledge, but it's all tribal. It's in their head. The workforce is aging, and they're not going to be around for a lot of the transformational steps that are going to happen. So there's kind of this combination of how do you capture that knowledge and scale it, but also how do you make the work environment and manufacturing more attractive to a younger workforce. For me, I went in to get an engineering degree, and it was awesome to be able to work in a foundry for 3 months, go into injection molding area, go into a stamping area. I even got to put together spark plugs. So, those are the kind of things that I think younger workers are excited about. They don't want to go in and have a job doing the same thing for 30 years. So being able to make that attractive, and also be able to get people to understand that data science, being able to code in some of these new languages, and really be in the front end of innovation is going to happen on the shop floor and product design, and even the way that these products will interact with customers in the future.
Have we not done a good enough job, I would say, of letting the next generation, whether it's Generation Y or whatever letter we want to put onto it, realize that manufacturing, whatever vertical that we want to put on it, is sexy, because, that's the problem. It just doesn't feel, they look at manufacturing or construction, whatever industry it might be, is not sexy to them. Do we have to help them understand it's really a great career? I mean, it really is just like what you said. And do we have to get them do we have to do it at a younger age? What do we have to do to get them to realize innovation is where it's at? And there's a lot that can be done.
There is. I mean, I think it kind of operates in the shadows here, but if you go across the world and you look at, what kids want to be when they grow up in Europe and in Asia, they want to be scientists, they want to be engineers, they want to be creating things that get manufactured. That's not always the case, and not what gets role modeled here locally. It's usually musicians or sports stars or reality TV people. I think that there is, like I said, things operating in the shadows. At my kids' elementary school, there were 30 robot teams this year. And you look at what's going on in gaming and our investments in Xbox. I think it's there. I think there's opportunity. I think we probably need some help, and we can all probably be guilty of that a little bit, and being able to kind of reset our own children's expectations about what's important in life.
Well, I have to tell you, David Breaugh, America's lead for manufacturing and resources at Microsoft, thank you so much. What's your URL that they can learn more about what you guys are doing in manufacturing?
So on the Microsoft website, there is an industries page, and there's a lot of detail around our big offerings, some of our transformation stories, and how to actually get engaged with Microsoft. And I'm also available on LinkedIn if anybody wants to hit me up and take the conversation further.
All right, well, thank you so much. All right, viewers, that's all the time we have for this one right here, but we're still coming to you live here at Liveworx 2019 after a short break. But stick around, we have Eric Schaefer is going to be joining me here from Accenture. So share with us at Twitter at ConnectedWMag. We want to hear your thoughts, and you just hear David wants to hear more of your thoughts as well. So this is the Peggy Smedley Show, the podcasting voice of IoT and digital transformation. And remember, with great technology comes great responsibility. We'll be right back.